Hey guys, I've had a little scheduling error. I took shower way too late and now my hair's wet and I don't like using hair dryers, so I'm gonna play a segment of the game and wait for my hair to dry before I go to bed. Uh, the Ushilamiya family conference was held once every year on the first weekend of October. If a normal family were to hold a so-called family conference, you'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. However, part of the family's great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children. Okay? And no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. So this meeting literally was a conference. How much of the fortune was invested? What sort of business was conducted? How much profit was earned? As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid? Or possibly how much more will be borrowed for future business ventures? What lessons had they learned and what could they learn from their mistakes? It seems like a stressful way of conducting a family, right? I don't know if it's literally true that if you begin with a lot of money, it's easy to be successful. So like, I'm not sure, like, even if the parents of a family are successful in business, how likely is it for their children to begin something new and then also succeed? Even if they get to borrow money from their parents' fortune. It just seems really harsh, like, you're not considered an adult until you succeed? And then your family conference, while you're still considered a child, is about how much you can repay the family? Like, is there a path if you grow up in a household like this where you can choose to just be like a normal person, graduate from a school and go to work at a normal place, something like that? Anyways, it's a fictional family. I don't know what I'm thinking about that. It seems that topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like lying on a bed of nails. Dang. Apparently, it used to be a very serious family meeting, where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices, and some people even got slapped, despite their age. Okay. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Okay, at least that's good. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful. So while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for his grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. What did Kinzo say about the children? Said the oldest son wastes money, or he was not good at business, like Chase throw away 2 coins to get 1 or something, and then Ava was money obsessed or something, and third child only wanted to play with women. Fourth child just generally like had a kid with some unknown person. So this is like Battler's point of view, right? So he thinks, or at least he's heard from his dad, that the dad's generation is successful now, so the family conferences are less stressful, but it seems like the grandfather still has nothing good to say about his children, business-wise or otherwise. The absence of the man who was the source of all this trouble regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste much more delicious. The phrase "while the demon's not around, everyone can relax" come to mind. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. The man sitting to my father's left is his older brother and Jessica's father, Uncle. His name surely is easy to read. Now that we've gotten used to this string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed. Klaus. Something like that. So Kraus. I'm gonna say Kraus. Doesn't actually seem that bad. Even starts to sound kinda cool. Just like on Nazi, I didn't have many memories of speaking with Uncle Kraus. He had never been one to chat to children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like on Nazi. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. What he said is true. Uncle Kraus used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling, and was despised by all the other siblings. Though, despite that, those siblings all seemed to be chatting happily together. Oh well, even if their relationship was bad when they were children, sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, the relationships change. That's probably what this was. After all, they all had children of about the same age. By sharing the same family environment, they probably profited by exchanging opinions. Maybe because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I will be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father on her left, purposefully faced right while firing off rapid series of comments, not giving him any chance to get a word in. Moving on, let's look at the end opposite from Kraus and the others. In the very last seat at the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kilia-san. This was my first time meeting him. I'd only just been introduced to him, but it seems his grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. So he wasn't here 6 years ago? I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Nijima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. He had known grandfather since the very beginning. Okay, I guess 6 years ago maybe the grandfather was in better health, so Valor had not seen Nanjo, at least not very often. When the mansion was first constructed on the island, and had built up a relationship over several decades, I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems he was actually grandfather's chess partner. I see, that kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather, but with his love of all things Western. Nanjo's probably the only person who could enter Lokenjima despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kilia and the other women who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of our short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. I wonder if Kinzo has anything good to say about his quote-unquote friends of his own generation. I know that the people I know who are kinda like Kinzo, who have nothing good to say about their own family, seem to have less trouble appraising their like friends who are on the same, who they see as on their same level in a more objective way, or just less scornful a way. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ushinomiya family attend the family conference was a little odd. It made me think that grandfather's condition might have worsened so much, it'd be a major topic of discussion at today's conference. After all, George said something like that just a second ago, something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that grandfather didn't have long to live. It's nasty to think about it. I wonder what his condition is. We've only been told that he drinks, his drinking is not good for him. But what specifically is like about to kill him in 3 months? It's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich grandfather is. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with fair share of our parents' stomach acid. It'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance they'll be talking about stuff like that at the family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with us kids. I mean... Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. The person who should be sitting in that incipient chair is Ushinomiya Kinzo. I kept wanting to say Ushilojima. That's not it. It really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got his perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were written Kinzo, but he let us call him Goldsmith or something, I'd totally freak out. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temper. I'm one of his grandchildren, not a son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. He has comments for you. You probably don't know about it. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself. But our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. The earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Cross about who should go convince grandfather to calm down seems pretty darn funny once you know their background. Like how successful they are? You can't really tell grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event back before the Showa era. Until the Meiji and Taisho eras, the Ushinomiya family was great and prosperous. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to just double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, grandfather was a member of a branch family and had pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down the list of people who could inherit the headship, but he had hardly any contact with the glamorous main family. Can you hear my headphones? I'm wearing a different pair of headphones that leak sounds a bit more. I'm gonna have to listen back to the recording afterward. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in the year Taisho, actually I'm just gonna turn the volume down. Okay. Year Taisho 12, 1923, the mansion owned by the Ushinomiya family on Odawara was flattened. Where is that? Odawara, city in Japan. Historic coastal city in Kanagawa Prefecture. I see. Hakone. It's outside of Tokyo by like 40-50 kilometers. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ushinomiya family lost most of its wealth and family members in an instant. Damn. So once they started trying to figure out who the successor to the Ushinomiya family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except for Kinzo in his branch family. In Kinzo's later reminiscence, he referred to this as good fortune so great that it overturned fate. With that, grandfather's boring everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ushinomiya family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he had been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this is when grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all of the family's remaining wealth, as well as everything from the hair on his head to his toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. Once he'd built up a gigantic war chest, immediately invested in businesses. It was like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighboring bike, and then another one. Larger and larger bikes. It's like some crazy street performance. But everyone thought grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. Yeah, he was like a no-name before this, right? However, after several miracles and turns of good luck, with coincidences piling up and every chance taken advantage of, he was suddenly in control of powerful connections with the occupying forces. Okay. At the time, MacArthur and the GHQ Japan General Headquarters, referring to the command organization led by General Douglas MacArthur that governed Japan during the Allied military occupation from 45 to 52. Interesting. Were the ultimate authority in Japan. Grandfather, in the twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. Is this why he's so West obsessed? Or maybe he was already a big fan of the West, and that's how he gained the trust of the GHQ, maybe? By this point, it's probably safe to say that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some seriously deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about the emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning, when he started investing his money. Okay. The history books made it sound like all of Japan made a large profit off of the emergency demands during the Korean War, but that isn't actually true. Only a very limited number of the super rich played the money game and made an easy profit. Most of the citizens remained poor. In other words, grandfather was a member of this extremely lucky group of winners. I'm pretty sure this all happened during the year Showa 25, 1950 or so. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisho 13. Oh damn. So, that means grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ushinomiya family in only about 20 years, to a level even higher than it had ever been before. Like between 24 and 50, Japan was also like this, turned from this huge expanding military empire into like lost in the war and was occupied by the US. So it's a huge, like a U-turn for the country as a whole, but maybe for the family it's more of a just... The family's U-turn happened in 24, and then it might be a more straightforward rise for the family between 24 and 50. Okay, I don't know. I don't really know what Japan was like between those years. With that, you'd think he'd revived the main family in Odawara. But for some reason, he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Izu archipelago. Buying an entire island is not something that you can ordinarily do today. However, grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as business property, then tossed the project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. After the war, there were prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of the GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of that day offered this land to him practically for free. Damn. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Anyway, it seemed under-the-table bribes did their work well. Okay. Again, this is something I don't really know about, but from what I searched, GHQ was no longer the ruling organization of Japan after 52, so I wonder what that situation is like afterward. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Okay. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the storm. The stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune and his own island. Of course, it probably wasn't all luck. He was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He was able to use this and his advantage to sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. This mansion, in fact, grandfather was in love of the Western style, made his once uninhabited island a canvas upon which he could realize his dreams to his heart's content. He now had a Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. Imagine being in that position in life. Like, you could just retire and raise children or whatever if that's what you want, and just have a happy life, but you had to keep going and try to turn his children a certain way and being unhappy about that. It's just such a tortured way of living. And he had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for any boy. Yeah, I guess. He basically could just do anything that he wants. Like, anything that he'd like to see happen, any change in the society, he has enough power to make it, to like at least work toward it. But I guess, yeah, anyways. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in an extremely stable iron and steel industry, and was able to live an easy and comfortable life just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. This kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that is how they're portrayed after the fact. But grandfather denies all of that, repeatedly saying that he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. Anyway, even a lore like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up alone on an island where all his dreams were made real. Okay, maybe. But like, it seemed he had been violent when his kids were young. So I don't think he like only turned crazy after being shut away for years. Everyone knows that he had a Western obsession from the start, but none of our parents really know when his bizarre black magic hobby began. That his love of black magic began way back when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous stretch of good luck while reviving his family cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? But I feel like, yes, from like a third person point of view, people tend to portray these kind of very lucky people as like possessed by God or have some miracles happen to them. But I always imagined for the person themselves, they like from the inside see, they're aware how the sausage is made the whole time. They wouldn't be mistaken that it's all thanks to magic or miracles or something. So it's kind of weird that the person himself will become obsessed with magic if it's for that reason. But this is all just Battler's inner monologue. It's not really reliable. Oh, we'll see. At some point, grandfather began to make the research of black magic his life's work. He filled his study up with suspicious books, chemicals, and magical items as he became increasingly bizarre. From what I've heard, those around him warmly watched over him, figuring that someone who would have achieved success in life had a right to do as he pleased. Okay. But there's no way that's true. They were probably just creeped out, thinking that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. They're probably also just happy that Kinzo's paying attention to something other than themselves. Anyway, the agitated period was an age of big gambles, with both opportunities and risks. Let's say grandfather was born into this in this time period. He would have had no opportunities, and would probably have advanced like a chess piece from mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming more than an average salaryman. If that happened, he'd probably have sat somewhere happily talking behind his boss' back. No, not in a fancy dining hall like this, more like at a table in some bar. Then again, I'll bet his family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that were the case. Yeah, I guess we don't really know what's caused him to be like that. Maybe it comes down to how he was raised too. So if he was born in this era, it also depends on what his parents are like in this era. But yeah, I would guess being born in the 70s in Japan is gotta be like much easier than if you were born in well, when was Kenzo born? He became the head of the family in the 20s? So he was born like 1900-ish, maybe? I don't really know when Japan was like then. I know it's extremely difficult in the like 40s and 50s after they lost the war, but I don't know what it was like before that. Okay, that's enough about the old geezer. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch. I'm already convinced by the sashimi salad appetizer. Goda-san's an excellent chef. Plus, these fish were caught in the adjacent seas, weren't they? They're totally different from the sashimi you get at the supermarket. Hey, quit it, Balor. Your upbringing will be exposed. This is your son you're talking about. Everyone lets out a big laugh. Damn it, you say that even though you love these cheap pups. Hahaha, I've eaten at many unusual places because of work, but this stands right up there with the best of them. I'd be willing to bet Goda-san used to be pretty well known in those circles. Well, I don't know the details, but stuff got complicated at a long-standing hotel he used to work at. Well, with them opening a new establishment with the same name and breaking into factions or whatever it was. In the middle of all of that, he was apparently forced to retire. At that time, Mom just happened to be sending out job offers for a servant. I don't know. I don't know if Goda would be happy hearing you talk about his situation like this. As Goda removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing his smile. Okay, maybe he's okay with it. The world is a difficult place. However, thanks to the madam, I was given a chance to display my skills as a chef once again, this time for the Ushilamiya family. It's gotta feel kinda weird. I feel like working as a chef in a hotel that's like public facing, cooking for a lot of people every day and basically only having to do that seems to be a very different job from working as like the private chef plus a general servant on an island for one rich family. Although I enjoy experiencing the smiles of a larger number of people, okay, I should have read it first. I also find it quite entertaining to perform more delicate work that can please the limited number of those who have employed me. All this is thanks to the opportunity given to me by the madam. Kodo-san respectfully bowed his head towards Onnasi. That's because you were the most talented of the applicants. The decision was purely objective, not based on personal feelings, so there's no need to thank me. Okay. There's a way to say the exact same thing that would sound way better and show your appreciation for the person. But I feel like Natsuki almost goes out of her way to sound indifferent. Maybe actually shows that she's like an honest person or something. Like she's not into the interpersonal stuff, maybe. Dang, why does Natsuki always have to sound so indifferent? Okay. If only she spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Shannon-chan and Kumasawa-san entered from the hallway with the serving cart. Please excuse us. Now then, let us move on to today's dessert. Gono-san and the others laid the beautifully adorned dessert out in front of us all. I guess it's true when they say you have another stomach for dessert. I thought I already filled up on delicious food, but as soon as I laid eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling more. I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. The white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce, and elegant rose petals adorned the dish. Normally, during a high-class meal like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to extol the virtues of this particular meal before eating. I've never seen that word, but I can infer what it means. However, Maria was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited by this beautiful and delicious looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed before her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but Joy responded by saying, No, it's okay. Ooh, this part is sour. This part is sour. Battler, this one's no good. Ooh. Maria exclaimed as she sampled the 2 colored sauces. What? Some are good and some bad? Okay, I'll give it a go. Apparently one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Whoa, one of these sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd suspect. I'm no good at saying sus kind of sound. Suspected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness. It would be red. Just food dye, maybe? I decided to ask Shannon, who was putting away the serving cart behind us. Shannon-chan, what kind of sauce is this sour stuff? I have no idea. Shannon-chan hesitated. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she doesn't really know. Still, even considering that, she seems pretty stressed. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or did they use some ingredient that we'd better off not knowing about? Well, Aunt Natsuki made a gesture that seemed to indicate that oncoming headache. An oncoming headache, Kumasawa-san, who was setting the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle. What do you think we made it out of? Ho ho ho, it'll shock you. Huh? I don't have a clue. Wait a sec, Kumasawa-san. That laugh's pretty creepy, so what is it? Don't tell anyone, okay? Listen very carefully. Kumasawa-san leaned across from the other side of the table. I leaned forward myself when she asked. Their interest caught. Jessica, George Aniki, and of course Maria also put their ears closer. Ooh, what? What? Quickly, quickly. You see, the sour part is made from juice squeezed from a mackerel. Ho ho ho. What? Mackerel? That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepted it, nodding sagely. Ooh, mackerels are sour. This is what comes out when you squeeze them. Are they? When Maria started clamoring that mackerels were sour, the adults were unable to contain their laughter. Only Aunt Rosa, her face red, whispered to Maria that mackerel is sour only once prepared as shime saba. Shime saba. Shimesaba is a classic Japanese dish of vinegar cured mackerel. Okay. Okay. Ah, now I totally remember. Kumasawa-san was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember her tricking me too in all sorts of ways when I was young. Most lethal has gotta be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They are kikulage mushrooms. Kikulage. Ah, more. She told me there were penguin meat, and I went all around school like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I? Kumasawa-chan, you surely haven't changed. I know Maria is gonna believe it now, right? Hey, you know Maria is gonna believe it now, right? Ho ho ho, it's just a joke. Now Goro-san's going to tell us what the sauce really is, won't he? Goro looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason, but after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us. Well then, allow me to introduce our dessert. It's Shannon's in a very difficult situation, you know? She doesn't have Kumasawa's interpersonal skills to make that kind of joke and then redirect the question to the only person who can actually answer it. But also I feel like this type of joke can only work because Kumasawa is an old person that everybody respects, and at the same time they cannot do anything about her because she's been around for so long. So the same joke coming from Shannon wouldn't work. Maybe if she's socially adept in a similar way, she'd come up with a joke that would work for her. Maybe. I have no idea. I'm no good at that stuff myself. Well then, allow me to introduce our dessert. After seeing how much you enjoyed the rose garden earlier today, I finished this panna cotta in a rose garden style. What is that? I'm searching so much stuff. Panna cotta. Italian dessert. Cream thickened with gelatin and molded. How do you say that? Panna cotta. That's American English. Panna cotta is British English. Okay, something like that. I don't really know. Why did Google not show me Italian pronunciation though? Italian. The Italian phrase panna cotta is pronounced panna cotta. Okay, maybe it's just that. Panna cotta. Okay, I'll just say panna cotta. The rose petals scattered across were selected just now from that very rose garden. Sauce is a combination of two reds, strawberry and rose hips. What is a hip of a rose? Rose hips. Oh! Rose hips is the accessory fruit of the various species of rose plant. I didn't even know rose made fruit. Please enjoy this mixture of the strawberry sweetness and the rosehip sourness. Furthermore, the rose petals are merely decorative, so please avoid them while you eat. With that said, please enjoy. Whoa, man, I almost want to applaud before eating. Just like with medicine, reading the detailed description first seems to make it work a whole lot better. Okay, that's kinda true. As Goro-san elaborated on details of this dessert, it started to feel even more appetizing. Seriously, should you call him subtle or just talented? The dessert was probably planned from the beginning, but taking the hint when we all stopped in front of the rose garden earlier today, he displayed an incredible and timely awareness by just adding a few rose petals from the garden. This combination of sweet and sour was also exquisite. If it was just sweet, you just get used to it and bored halfway through. But if you reach the sour sauce, at that point, you'd get a really vivid taste. And then once you return to the sweet sauce, all of the sourness in your mouth will be replaced with an enjoyable sweetness. I'm sure everyone else felt the same way. Every time Goda-san passed by one of our seats, someone praised the taste in his presentation. How is it, madame? Splendid as always. It is worthy of entertaining our guest. Again, that is a very is a too objective way of commenting on the dessert. I am most grateful for your words. Madam, did you know? I have heard that rosehip has the ability to cure headaches. I thought that you in particular would appreciate it, so I had it specially prepared. I feel like this level of thoughtfulness almost seems kind of threatening coming from Goda. If he's like 20 years older or something like that, or if he's a woman instead, it would be less so. But coming from a apparently very tall, large guy, I don't know. Is that so? Thank you. See, didn't I tell you, Natsune-san? Rosehip is great for headaches. When did you guys talk about it? So it seems, I do hope it actually helps. Ha! Kora-san, I love ya! Hey, later on, why don't you tell me how they're treating ya? If you can't, just let me know what sort of salary you'd like. Having your talent confined to this small island is sacrilege to humanity's cooking culture. What do you think about working your craft for my company and delighting all our customers? Hahaha, Hideyoshi-san, are you trying to steal away our Goda? No, that won't do at all. We'd better start treating Goda better, or he'll get snatched up. He goes, yes, you really should. If you don't, someone's gonna grab him. You'll be stuck with 3 meals of Kumasawa-style macro cooking a day, won't you? Ho ho ho, that's harsh. It seems someone's holding a grudge against me. Ha 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 ha, everyone let out a huge laugh. According to Jessica, Kumasawa-san's macro jokes were a running gag that our parents had long since gotten used to. Kumasawa-san often claimed that macros had precious nutritional value, which could slow aging, make people smarter, and more. Supposedly, while it couldn't stop the outward signs of aging, it helped prevent it on the inside. Since she was still spirited enough to tell these kinds of jokes at her age, there must be something to that theory. Ho 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 ho, in that case, if you'll excuse me, prepare yourself for tonight's dinner. I'll be cooking plenty of macro dishes for you all, so you better look forward to it. Wahaha, we sure will. Can't wait to get all puckered up from tonight's shimesaba. That sounds wonderful. I wonder if they'll be serving any good Japanese sake. Oh, we certainly will. Haven't you heard of Lokenjima's famous macro shochu? Wahaha. Kumasawa-san, together with Shannon-chan, bowed and pushed the serving cart away. It was pretty funny to watch Goda-san, who looked like his show had totally been stolen, explain in a serious voice that we would be having calf steak for dinner. Kumasawa-san, thank you for doing that back there. As she pushed the serving cart, Shannon bowed her head very deeply. Oh, I haven't done anything that requires thanks. Kumasawa may have played dumb, but she had obviously understood and saved Shannon in the nick of time. Back when Balor had asked about dessert, Shannon had unfortunately hesitated. She? There may have been several ways to dodge the question, but all of them would have required some quick wits. Shannon, who hesitated when hard-pressed for a response, was always suffering because of this small weakness. If only Shannon had a little of the craftiness needed to cleverly shake off a mistake, like Goda, her life would have been a bit easier. The fact that she could perform other tasks flawlessly made this weakness even more unfortunate. However, there were some who understood Shannon's honest nature, her inability to gloss over a mistake and draw attention away from it. That was why Kumasawa had smoothly come to her rescue. Wait, is this still Valor's inner monologue, or are we in some kind of omniscient POV now? I just heard from Genji-san that there will be a change in the afternoon shifts. I believe you were given a break until this evening. Ho ho ho, I'm jealous. Huh? Oh, sorry, I haven't checked the shift chart yet. She is kind of an airhead, isn't she? Ah, yes. I was thinking I might start cooking some mackerel in the oven. If you don't mind, I would be happy if you would help out a bit before your break. Ah, yes. I'll be delighted to help. To Shannon, Kumasawa was like a mother among the servants. The dining hall needed to be cleaned up, so we were chased out. Instead, tea was being served in the parlor. Apparently, they'd prepared the black tea that Aunt Rosa had bought for Aunt Natsuki. Maria said she also wanted to have some black tea, but my old bastard said she couldn't and told us children to go play outside. Butler-kun, why don't we all go for a walk outside? Go ahead and take a look at the roses or something. But keep a close eye on the weather. The sky is still clear, but the weather report kept on talking about rain. Ooh, I want to go to the beach. The beach. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Playing on a sandy beach isn't something you get to do often, is it? Ah, good point. Okay, let's all go to the beach then. Ooh, let's go, let's go. Maria, be careful not to get your clothes wet. Or your shoes. Ooh, won't get wet. Giggle, the obedience is so cute. Bella-kun, make sure you keep an eye out for Maria-chan, okay? Sure, leave it to me. Hey, you're pretty obedient and cute yourself, listening to Kyrie like that. Why don't you also listen to me obediently for a change? Ha, hell no. Let's go everyone, come on. The children flew out of the parlor. They were replaced by Genji, who pushed a serving cart in and prepared to serve the tea. The parlor was filled with a sublime aroma, which delighted everyone while they waited to slake their thirst. Ha ha ha. Rudolph's family certainly seems close. It's a wonderful thing. Dude, you say that. I think that's backhanded, because seems Rudolph is the only one who divorced and, you know, has a new wife who the son and the new wife don't call each other mother and son. Quit it, we're no match for your family, Aniki. Is that also backhanded? That's true. You raised Jessica-chan to be so adorable. I think that's also backhanded, because Jessica openly says some pretty rebellion stuff. I imagine that's yet another fruit of her talents at education and training, Natsuki-san. Thank you. Natsuki answered coldly. I think she's really not into these like interpersonal, whether it's like trying to give others a good impression or this kind of backhanded stuff. She's just not interested either way. The conversation broke off then, and the parlor fell silent. Maybe Hideyoshi couldn't bear the silence because he broke it himself with an exaggerated gesture. Still, they should grow fast. I thought they'd be kids forever, but they started getting huge all of a sudden, and then they're adults like us. Butler-kun looks like a completely different person now. I mean, it's 6 years. His body has grown much bigger, but he's still just a kid. Though you could say the same about my husband. I wonder where the border between child and adult is. I still don't feel as though I've grown up. Isn't that pitiful? That's not something the mother of a child should say. I wonder how much of an age gap there is between Cross and Rosa. Cross looks much older. That's right, we're not children anymore. We're all adults now, so I wish we could talk together on an intellectual level rather than an emotional one. What's she talking about? When Ava smiled with sharp sarcasm, everyone seemed to get more tense. It felt as though the pleasant tea aroma had been tossed out the window. Since long ago, we've always endeavored to engage in intellectual conversations. It seems your sarcasm occasionally misses its mark, just as it always has. Occasional, or is occasional, or is it always? Oh, what's it? What is it you always endeavor to do? My, I wish I could wrap those words up and send them to this room a few decades ago. Okay. I guess she was chastising him for getting angry in the past. Right, Rosa? Hmm. Rosa gave a vague smile. She knew that whether she agreed or disagreed, she'd earned the displeasure of one of her siblings. The little bro syndrome. Not a syndrome, but the little bro mentality. It was a bit of a worldly wisdom that had been essential for someone growing up as the youngest sibling. Quit it, Aniki. We better get started on the main topic while the brats aren't around. Let us make that our intellectual discussion. As Rudolph glanced over the faces of all present, some let out a slight sigh, and some let out a small look of resignation across their face. They were approaching their unavoidable true agenda. Last year, his life expectancy was estimated at about 3 months, which I guess means he's got a negative 9 months left now. Should we take that to mean it might suddenly happen at any time? The family head is still alive and well. The fact that you bring up such an inappropriate topic under the light of day makes me doubt your sanity, Rudolph-san. Still, Nasi-san, this is the sort of thing you can't put off until after something happens. He's still healthy now, which makes it the perfect time to talk about this, while we're still got time to plan. It's just a bit of financial etiquette, you might say. It seems father is the focus of everyone's concern. Dr. Nanjo, could we hear the details from you? That appears to be what everyone else is waiting for, after all. Cough. Nanjo, who had been standing by the window and staring out at the rose garden, let out a single cough when he realized that he was being called. Dr. Nanjo, how is father's condition? Well, to begin, allow me to start with the revision, since my estimate last year that he had only 3 months left was not borne out. No need to explain. You're saying that measuring remaining life is only a prediction, not a promise, right? That is correct. Because of that, while I will accept everyone's repeated questions, I can by no means confirm when he will pass away. A human's life is supported by their body and their mind. If the body is weak, the situation becomes more dangerous. But if the mind is strong enough to compensate for that weakness, the effects of one's condition can sometimes remain in a subdued state. So you're saying that even if his body is weak, his mind is still firm and spirited. Hylia is sorry, but please stay quiet for a bit. I'm sorry. These two actually seem okay. I think Rudolph just likes to tease Battler specifically. When Battler's not around, he just seems like a level-headed normal guy. And him and Hylia seems to understand each other on a high level too. Like he could just say things like, please stay quiet, and she's not mad about it. That indicates some level of trust. That is correct. Kinzo-san's body has been overwhelmed by the demon of ill health. This will hold especially true as long as he continues to partake of such strong alcohol. So what illness does she have? Does he have? Is it literally just alcohol related? So he's in a crisis now because he drinks, and maybe he's lived this long because he drinks. There's that for you, the heavy drinker. Well then, doctor, I know you can't give anything more than a prediction, but what do you think about father's chances of living until this day next year? That's quite a rude question to ask about the family head. She's quite uptight about that. Like she actually is mad about that. I think the rest of the children are just kind of like putting up front when they're like not being direct about this. But she seems to be actually upset about it. Natsuhi jumped on Eva, not even bothering to hide her astonished expression. Eva stared back daringly, but Hideyoshi realized realized what was going on and tried to smooth things over with a forced smile. Ah, Natsuhi-san, forgive her. Eva, choose your words a bit more carefully, okay? I'm sorry, I was just so concerned about father's condition. Giggle. Is that so? I hadn't realized. See, so this is what I meant when I was just now talking about Rudolph and Kilie. Like here, Eva and Hideyoshi, it's hard to describe that they are in this. There's this tension between what they both are trying to do, right? She's more like, I think she just really hates Natsuhi for some reason. And for her, it's important to get that hate, to express that hate in some way. And Hideyoshi cares more about being cordial and focusing on the overall conversation and the point of the conversation, I guess. And so there's this tension between them. But Kilie and Rudolph seems to just be on the same page. Or maybe it's just Kilie who is like very understanding, maybe. And she seems to be able to temporarily put aside what it was that she needs to do. Or maybe she's just not, she just doesn't need, she doesn't have as strong of motivation as like Ava does to say certain things or do certain things. So she's content with just staying quiet and not getting like a final word in the way Ava just did. Anyways, is that so? I hadn't realized. Dr. Nanjo, please tell us. For the sake of the beautiful love of a daughter worried about her father's lifespan. Cross laughed sarcastically, and Ava smiling sweetly. This is interesting too. So I was saying the other children other than Natsuhi, they only like try not to talk about the death of their father super straightforwardly and like indifferently because they want to put up front to some level. And that includes Cross, it seems like, right? He sarcastically talks about the beautiful love of a daughter worried about her father's lifespan. So he doesn't really believe there's any like care or love in these exchanges. But Natsuhi actually gets indignant. You ask whether he will still be healthy next year. But as a doctor, it's very hard to say, because while I do think this lull in his condition will continue for a while, if he suffers some kind of fit, there may be nothing we can do. After all, Lokenjima is a solitary island. It is not as though an ambulance could quickly jump in to save him. Normally, I would want to have him placed in a large hospital on the mainland, but Father stated that he does not want his noble research interrupted. It seems he holds a grudge over the way we tried to force him out last year. I wonder, is there truly no way for a mega rich person to set up like a personal room or something in a hospital where he can just move all of his books over? Or maybe, I guess he's like out of his mind partially. So maybe he just really doesn't want to leave the room in a not very rational way. Apparently, he strongly suspects that he'll be shut away in some hospital if he goes outside. And that's how things are now. Has Dr. Nanjo been examining him? Father trusts Dr. Nanjo. It seems he can be examined when in one of his better moods. I can examine his condition, but if I try to recommend medicine or hospitalization, he refuses to listen. I've really only been able to look. It's true some people hate doctors. Still, what a hassle. Nanjo sighed deeply. The purpose of an examination is to determine what medical treatment will be appropriate. Receiving an examination and then not following the advice given makes the whole thing pointless. So, to sum it up, he's still expected to live 3 months. There's no way to guess how long he'll continue to live while still on the verge of death. Rudolph-san, couldn't you be a little more discreet with your words? She is kinda uptight about this. Sorry, I've always talked this way. Like, she's not just indignant about this, she also, like, either doesn't notice that the other people really don't care, or she cares about it so much that even though the other people don't care, she still won't let it go. Oh, sorry, I've always talked this way, give me a break. I understand how Dr. Nanjo sees it. What about you, Krasny-san? To be perfectly honest, I have to disagree with Dr. Nanjo. I find it truly difficult to think of father as a person so sick that he only has 3 months to live. His yell is as healthy as ever, and I still get chills at the thought of his fist raining down on me. He's very honest about that. Pushing the care of your father solely on the shoulders of the elder sibling is far from fair. Okay, immediately chastises others. Haha, in the next world, get born after me. Okay. Rudolph. Okay, let's get back on track. So in the opinion of our impartial and neutral doctor, it wouldn't be odd for him to go any time. No offense to you, Aniki, but I rather trust the opinion of an expert in his field. Which means it's definitely not too early to start talking about Dad's assets. Father's personal funds probably reach as high as several 10 billion yen, right? But it's not as though that's all neatly gathered as ready cash. It's not as simple as simply cutting a birthday cake with a knife. That's an interesting way to put it. That's right, you sometimes get strawberries or chocolates on top of the cake, making it hard to cleanly cut into equal parts. Given that, don't you think it's important to discuss beforehand how best to stick the knife in? Damn, the way he talks about it. I can understand how you all can openly discuss this as though the family head is dead, even though he's still alive. Okay, one more interesting thing is Cross and Nazi are so not on the same side that like they don't even interact basically. I wonder what's going on in their marriage. It's almost like they both just accept that the other person care about completely different things. And like there's no point in trying to smooth that over in any way. After all, when the time comes, the inheritance of his fortune must be carried out immediately, right? Moreover, the glorious Ushilomiya house's wealth is vast. Don't you understand that careful discussion is necessary beforehand? There's a huge difference between this family's resources and your family's wealth. Okay, so she's also from a business family, maybe? How rude, my birth family has nothing to do with this. Nazi responded indignantly, though in a low voice, and the already dark atmosphere grew even more hostile. Ava really hates her, seems. Give it a rest, Ava. Nazi-san, forgive us. Pardon her rudeness. Hideyoshi tried to smooth things over by glancing at both with a forced smile, but only resulted in making the hostility between Ava and Nazi even more intense. It seems I'll just get in the way if I stay any longer. Do skedaddle. Please excuse me. Got the fuck out of there. Nanjo rose from his seat and exited the parlor. To an outsider, it may have seemed like a normal act of courtesy, but his back was watched by several glances envious of his ability to escape. Wow. You want to go, but you also need to discuss the inheritance. After the doctor had exited and his footsteps had disappeared into the distance, Cross recrossed his legs. In other words, this is what you all would like to say. Father's remaining life is short. You want to quickly enter into a practical conference concerning the distribution of the inheritance. Why are you so eager, I wonder? Certainly, as you say, estimating and distributing the Ushinomiya family's wealth is no simple task. In that case, shouldn't we make careful and deliberate calculations? It seems to me that you are all impatient to split up the cake tonight. Is that true, Rosa? The reason is there to be hasty. We aren't being hasty. However, we need to have an agreement between the siblings. It doesn't matter when we do that. If the day father's condition worsens is approaching, discussing the matter beforehand hardly seems hasty to me. Rosa shot a glance at Ava and Rudolph. She also seems very level-headed compared to quite a few of the others. As the youngest sibling in the family, it was hard for her to be cross-examined by the eldest. Oh? Is that your true opinion? I didn't expect that. The most honest and pure-hearted of the siblings would say something like that. Wonder if those two told you to say it. She just says nothing. Quit it, Aniki. Rose is one of Dad's kids too. She's got as much right to his inheritance as the rest of us. It's only natural that she'd be interested. After all, Dad'll definitely die, and that's not something that'll happen in the distant future. On the contrary, Aniki, you're way too relaxed. It almost seems like you'd like nothing better than to turn the discussion away from the inheritance issue. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to accuse my husband of something? Oh, okay. So she is protective of him. Calm down, Natsu-san. Listen to what we have to say. Nissan, I hear the times have been extremely good lately. Yes, since last year, we've been in an unprecedented boom, and the yen keeps on rising. It seems that it's no longer a dream that the dollar will reach 100 yen. Also, the ruling party says that it will establish health resort maintenance law by next year. This is set in 1986, right? So the bubble economy has not popped yet. At this moment, resort development companies across Japan are running about trying to gather as much funding as they can. You certainly seem to know a lot about it. Japan is about to experience an unprecedented boom. It'll be a repeat of the Korean War demands, the time during which father revived the Ushinomiya family. The people of Japan have been working like mad, achieving vast economic growth and becoming the most well-off people in the world, reaching the heights of our prosperity. We've reached an era where private spending is vast, which means easy money for institutions that can capitalize on the fact. The three kinds of electrical appliances no longer represent the people's needs. Does that mean TV, fridge, and washing machine? That's what that would mean if it was set in China, I think. The people need ski resort, golf courses, public pools. Damn, sure is an elevation. Resort hotels and theme parks. Have you gone to Disneyland, which opened just a few years ago? What an excellent theme park. It's a place where even an adult can be a kid and have fun with his family. No longer do we count our sole virtue to be selfless devotion while failing to care for our families. We've become the most prosperous people in the world, and now we can finally enjoy the benefits. Cross-sign, your foresight, nothing to sneeze at. When I heard that sort of thing several years ago, I thought it was crazy. But when I heard about the G5 Nations Plaza Accord, that all changed. The yen shot up, and I bet the price of land skyrocketed. of land skyrocket soon too. Has it not already skyrocketed in 86? It won't be long before Japan becomes the economic center of the world. Damn. What it would be like living a world like that. This game came out in late 2000s, I think. When was Liu Kishi 707 age? He's 52, born in 73. Okay, so he remembers the whole bubble situation from building up to popping. I can only imagine what it was like in the 2000s to think back at before the bubble popped and that people believed this kind of stuff, and to write a story about it, portraying characters who are in that craze. Cross on, at least there can be no debate about that. Well, you'd be surprised. I feel the same as Hideyoshi-san. Oh. Aniki, you can read into the next decade of history. I'll bet you got that keen sense from that, and it's incredible. However, unlike that, the timing of your predictions has been a bit off sometimes, right? Nissan, you've been studying resort projects everywhere, convinced that Japan will soon see a boom, but almost all of them continue to fail. While I'm sure the era you predicted will soon arrive, it seems you misread the timing of that boom. You were too early. You then panicked and tried to set everything off, which only opened the wound even further. If your nose was really so reliable, then there should be no reason for you to sell off your property. Is this proof that you mistrust your own ability? How rude. Are you trying to insult my husband? She's... I feel like every time she opens her mouth, it's... she's just exclamating that others are disrespecting her, but like obviously if they can openly do that, they won't care about your like judgment of them for that reason. Ava, paying this no heed, stared at Cross with a confident smile. Cross, who also maintained his confident appearance, told Natsuhi to sit down. Please stop, Natsuhi. Ava's always been incapable of talking any other way. Calm down a little, or our headache will get worse. There's proof of your lack of talent right next to us. After all, Nissan, weren't you all excited about turning this island into a resort? You built a wonderful resort hotel and beautifully maintained the garden. I'm just an amateur and don't pretend to understand, but you must have used a significant amount of money for that, right? And what is that to you? My husband's business is none of yours. Actually, that's not true, Natsuhi-san. Okinjima doesn't belong to Aniki, it belongs to Dad. Of course, the hotel does belong to Aniki, right? In fact, we'd be more than willing to pay lodging fee for tonight. What do you think, Rosa? Well, if what I have on hand will suffice. It seems like Rosa maybe has the least monetary success. If I can make it into a resort, the island's financial worth will rise. It's true that expenses have piled up, but we can expect a large harvest in the future. When that happens, all of you stand to profit as well, do you not? I understand that. If the value of this island rises, that'll increase our portions when we distribute the inheritance. Of course, I won't ask you to divide the island and the mansion into 4 equal parts. We can just resolve the matter with money equal to the value of the property. If you understand that much, what about my business make you so dissatisfied? We aren't dissatisfied, we're uneasy. In the first place, Aniki, when do you plan to open that hotel? Left this way, you won't get anything out of it except our grubby handprints, right? That's right. It's an important tool for a business, isn't it? Surely you can't keep it locked up until the moment you open it. Buildings go bad if you don't use them, and air them out every once in a while. Even so, it's a bit extravagant for a guest house that we only use once a year. Right, Rosa? Interesting. Okay, so thinking back when Battler and the kids arrived at the guest house, I remember him commenting on how the family is so rich that they can build a guest house and it only be used once a year or so, and it's not a problem. But from the parents' perspective, it seems like it is actually a significant amount of money that they shouldn't just waste like that. That's right, considering how wonderful it is. I'm sure it will become quite popular once you open it. Oh, so the hotel you kept talking about is the guest house. It's splendid. Just as Rosa said, if you were to open it, I'm sure it would become popular. I mean, but it's just a hotel. The island itself needs to have attractions, right? For tourists to want to come. The lodging they had been guided to wasn't originally intended to serve as a guest house. It was originally constructed as a resort hotel. However, even though it was built 2 years previously, there was still absolutely no prospect of it opening. Nissan is just that, it's just like all of your enterprises. Your attention and planning are both fabulous. Then it always becomes unmaintainable partway through, ends before you have a chance to earn any profit. You're brilliant when you saw that using this island only as a place to live was a waste. Okay. I don't know any of these like business people in real life. So I wonder if it's a problem that their children would fall into, you know? So for some business person who starts from zero, they begin with a small business and then work their way up, I assume. But maybe because their children grow up rich, they will be unable to like execute on a business plan that's very small scale. Like they have to do something big. So I'm in game dev, so the analogy would be if you've only worked on large projects and then you want to do something indie and all of your ideas are huge extravagant projects that you cannot see through, and you would like spend 5 years on one project and at the end of it feel like you're nowhere near succeeding, and then you scrap that and then you do a next thing, and that next thing is also too big, and you're just unable to construct a project that's small enough for you to actually accomplish in reasonable time frame. Maybe rich kids would have that problem. I think it was a pretty good plan to turn it into a resort. They could use the prospect of marine sports, fishing, honeymoons, and the like to attract customers. If I were the oldest son, I'm sure I'd have strained my brain looking for a way to make a profit off this island. But 2 full years have passed since you finished building, right? After 2 years, you still haven't had the opportunity to open it. Where's the managing company you entrusted to? I don't know. It's also kind of weird for them to. I would think the island is like a small part of their fortune. I mean, if it actually, if you can actually buy and sell islands on the market, it wouldn't be a small money. It wouldn't be a insignificant amount of money. What I mean is, they probably have a bunch of properties other than this, right? Like, and this is kind of their home. It's kind of strange, isn't it, to build a hotel on your home and to seek earning money from essentially renting your home out to tourists when you don't have to rely on that for money. And the dad owns the island still. If he's this like shut-in recluse, why would he approve? Or maybe they have not opened the hotel because he doesn't approve. Then why would he approve of the construction begin with? I don't know. A lot of questions. Impertinence. That is not my husband's fault. There has just been some trouble with the company that my husband contracted with. No matter how you look at it, we're the victims here. And yet, the rumors we've heard about this company you hired haven't been good at all. Let's be clear about this, dear. See, them two are on the same side. And Rudolph and Kyrie doesn't say much, but they're on the same side too. But I just feel like, and Nessie is protective of Cross as well, but Cross doesn't seem to care that much about what Nazi cares about. We even have evidence. I don't know what kind of evidence you think you found, but it's all baseless. Well, as new members in the tourism industry, it is necessary for us to lay the groundwork with various people. It is also important to investigate the trustworthiness of our partners. Merely taking us some time to meet that goal. I'll admit that, in my rashness, the hotel was completed too early. However, it's not as though we're paying maintenance costs. It's a foundation that will eventually become immensely significant. Liar. I'll bet you want to liquidate it, but can't. After all, there's no reason for anyone to buy such an extravagant hotel on an isolated, empty island without any established sightseeing routes. Yeah, it just seemed really weird thing to do to begin with. To set up a hotel like that on this island before it has any tourist attraction. Anyway, what about all the loans you made for this project? Even if you aren't incurring maintenance costs, the borrowed money that you can't return just keeps growing. Sorry, Krasny-san, but I've investigated the development plan for this island a bit. To be honest, I haven't heard anything good either. Hideyoshi-san, I can see how you might be left with that impression by looking only at the current financial situation. However, this is a forward-looking investment. I have no choice but to admit that my predictions were mistaken, and up until now, several liabilities have been created. However, this time have finally caught up with me. The times have finally caught up with me. I will soon regain everything that I've lost to this point. He seems really confident. From what it sounds like, he's not in a good situation, but he doesn't seem pressed. No, actually, all of the investments I've made until now will finally return to my position. That's right, just like throwing away a small fry to catch a salmon. They will come back even bigger than before. I'll accept that. The resort business will probably see an unprecedented boom before long. Well, if only you knew. Though I don't know if it'll be enough to cover all your debt. However, Krasny-san, after all your failures in the past, who exactly do you expect to provide you with funding? And this isn't some small amount we're talking about. You'll need enough funding to fill the massive hole you've dug. What are you trying to say, Hideyoshi-san? Ah, Natsu-san, please don't get angry. We looked into this too. We checked to see who might have provided Krasny-san with enough financing to support his recent large-scale projects, despite his string of failures. And we discovered that no such backer exists. The iron rule of the money roulette is that you bet against the loser. Aniki, you're a fairly well-known loser in this field. Damn. It's true that prosperous times are about to come, but when you look for people who consider that enough to overlook your string of failures, and also had enough for the investment, we found no candidates. So the big question now is where you got that money from. Oh, now isn't this intriguing? And? Dear, how long do you plan to let these ridiculous remarks stand? Sit down, Natsu-san. Let's cut to the point. Aniki, you've been diverting those private funds to your own business. There's pretty much no room for doubt. If you think you've made some kind of mistake, please, feel free to explain. Rudolph, don't call it diverting funds. This is embezzlement, plain and simple. A huge crime that can be criminally prosecuted. That sort of rudeness cannot be tolerated. How can you face the successor to the Ushinomiya head family and level these absurd accusations. They aren't absurd, they're right on the mark. I'm sure he'd like to somehow make his business succeed and recover his losses. His debt keeps getting bigger. He's just trying to cover up the failure of one gamble by making an even bigger one. It's only natural that he try to grab any source of funding close at hand. Let me be frank, Nissan. What you're doing is embezzlement. You're betraying father. You know that we'll have the courts settle this after it's all over, right? Do you think that kind of person has any right to call themselves the successor to Ushinomiya head family? Damn. A father, you dare to claim that he has betrayed the family head? You no longer have the right to straddle the threshold of the glorious Ushinomiya family. Leave this place at once. Now. Get out. Natsu, who had already reached the limits of her anger, shouted at Ava in a rage. Okay. I don't know if maybe I'm just making wild guesses here, but I feel like maybe Natsu's from another also rich family, and she grew up in that environment where their authority is not questionable. And maybe her family is not in as good of a place now, but she's too used to that way of thinking. So she keeps talking about, like, from the place of authority, questioning why she's being disrespected. And she just repeatedly fail to acknowledge that if others are disrespecting of you openly, you scolding them for that has no effect. They don't care about your authority already. So like, Ava took out a folding fan and fanned herself with it, okay, because she's supposed to be like Chinese styled, glaring maliciously at Natsu as though silently daring her to repeat what she said. Yeah, like, you're asking them to leave, but this is their home as much as it is yours. You have no like authority over them. How do you plan on having your order executed? However, her mouth was still smiling, curved in the shape of a crescent moon. In the unpleasant silence, Rosa gulped. Hey, Nasine-san, to whom do you think you're speaking in such a tone? I'm speaking to the exceedingly rude sister of my husband. As the person in charge of the main family's kitchen, I cannot overlook any more of this. In charge of the kitchen? Ha 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 ha. Be silent, lowly maidservant. Oh, okay. Ava folded the fan with a snap and rose to her feet energetically. Compared to the elegance and playfulness she had shown until a second ago, she was now unimaginably aggressive. How foolish you stand down before Ava of the Ushinomiya family. Dang. You tell me to stand down? Me, Ushinomiya Ava, the third ranked in the Ushinomiya family hierarchy, and the one allowed to sit at the left shoulder of the head? Know your place, and then look at your shabby self in the mirror. Where is the symbol of the wing on your clothes? Where are you permitted to wear the one-winged eagle? Aren't you nothing more than a borrowed womb to house the next successor to the Ushinomiya family? I understand your place, you common housemaid. Okay. She... Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe Natsu was like a servant who married the like young master of the household and ascended that way. Kumasawa talked about her inferiority complex. If she is somebody like that who rose to power from a lowly place, I can see having inferiority complex due to that. But maybe the housemaid insult is just insult, I'm not really sure. Eva's face twisted hideously as her words gouged into Natsu's heart like talons wrenching at it. Ooh. There were 100 ways Natsu wanted to respond. However, her anger and sorrow crushed her throat. None of those words managed to make it to her mouth. Her anger had nowhere to go and become a single hot tear that slowly dripped down. I feel like she's like a character from those like those isekai manga that are that are made for a female audience, where you like you get isekai'd into like a medieval fantasy type thing, and you're like the princess of a kingdom or something, and you get involved in these kind of situations. What's wrong? If you have something to say, please do so. Come on. What does Cross say about this situation? Eva faced her with a provocative gaze. However, Natsuki could do nothing but tremble. She clenched fists, quivering. Cross quietly broke that powder keg tension. Okay. Natsuki, leave your seat. You should go cool your head. Okay, that's what you say? What? Natsuki, resenting the fact that her husband had not come to her aid, shifted the focus of her attack. Dear, don't you understand what they're saying about you? These people are baselessly calling you a traitor to father. They're making light of the fact that we protect the glory of the Ushilamiya family. Even though we're constantly expending every effort to earn that glory from father? They trample all of that underfoot with their hateful rambling. You don't even try to fight back. Why? I'm only standing up for us because you won't. But you've been putting the entire burden on me for some time now. And now you tell me to go cool my head? It's always me. Even though I have always considered this family's affairs so seriously, you've left, as he was already unable to hide her tears. She flew from the room in this state. Cross is a bit of a strange man. I wonder what he thinks of Natsuki. After that, all that remained was a somewhat embarrassed mood about the parlor. When the sound of footsteps grew distant and silence returned, Cross shrugged his shoulders slightly. I apologize for my wife. She has always been bad at controlling her emotions, and it's even been rough for me. If that's what's been managing your household, you must suffer to no end, Nissan. Giggle giggle. Madam. It's nothing. Leave me be. Natsuki flew into her room and threw herself onto her bed, lamenting. Those heart-wrenching sobs reached Kumasawa in the hallway. Poor Madame Natsuki. There's a deep enmity between her and Eva-sama, but why? Explaining their relationship would be very trying for me as a woman. The Ushilamiya family holds blood in high regard. If a woman marries and leaves the family, they are normally removed from the family register. Thus, under normal circumstances, Eva-sama should have been removed when she married Hideyoshi-sama. Okay, I thought Hideyoshi married into this family. However, there is no one deserving of blame in this matter. Madam certainly bears no guilt. There's nothing to call it other than a whim of God. Cross-sama and Natsuki-sama were not blessed with children for some time. Okay. After all, this is the male-dominant Ushilamiya family. Wife is merely a tool to create an heir. If such a wife cannot fulfill her only duty, she will not even be treated as a human. Okay. It pains me to remember how the master tortured Madame during that time. The master here is referring to the grandpa, right? Back then, a wedding between Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama was being discussed. Eva-sama was sly. Taking advantage of Madame's inability to become pregnant, she gained the favor of the master. She inspired him to allow her to marry and give birth to a successor herself, making sure to avoid transferring her name out of the Ushilamiya register. But then, Hideyoshi did marry into the family, essentially, right? Did he take on the Ushilamiya surname? There was a vast difference in the Ushilamiya hierarchy between Madame. who married into the Ushilamiya family and was treated like an outsider, and Eva-sama, who was related to family by blood and whose husband took on the Ushilamiya name. Furthermore, Eva-sama actually gave birth first, and to a boy. Yeah. So they talk about how essentially misogynistic the family is, but then the heir is a girl for some reason. That seemed strange to me, but it's seemingly that there's a pretty complex history in that. As for now, much weaker Madame's position was then Eva-sama as well. I believe you could see for yourself. Oh, how much weaker? Okay. Yeah. So I guess Eva hated Natsuhi because Natsuhi was later able to produce a child, even though it's a girl. It's so weird. Like by that time, George was supposed to be the heir, and he's been there for 5 years. And now, when the oldest sibling produces a daughter, the family is somehow happy to make the daughter the heir. It's surprising. Given how male-centered the family is. But I guess maybe Ava thought that's unfair. Even though she's a woman herself. I'm sure Madame is tormented by the thought that if only she had gotten pregnant earlier, the master wouldn't have accepted Eva-sama's request to keep her last name after marriage, and Eva-sama wouldn't have been permitted to act as arrogantly as she did today. However, that was not Madame's fault. All of the blame lies with God's whims, and the stork that delivered Jessica late. Even so, Madame won't allow herself to see things this way. She probably can't help but cry bitter tears as a woman at her inability to carry out the duties expected of a wife. Ah, how sad. I cannot do anything except watch over her from the shadows. Okay, scared me for a second. Okay, so it's been an hour and 40 minutes, roughly, and my hair's pretty dry now, so we'll take a break here, and we'll continue tomorrow, most likely. Alright. Save. Okay.